Ambassador Sarah Chun stood before the towering crystalline doors of the Galactic Council chambers, her hands steady despite the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. Behind those doors waited representatives from 47 different species. Each one evolved on worlds spanning thousands of light years across the galaxy. Today marked humanity's formal introduction to galactic civilization, a moment Earth had dreamed of since the first radio telescope pointed toward the stars. The invitation had arrived 3 months ago, delivered by a sleek vessel that materialized in Earth's solar system without warning. The ship's occupants, tall beings with silver skin and eyes like liquid mercury, had identified themselves as the Zephyrian Collective. They spoke of a grand alliance of civilizations, of trade routes that span galaxies, and of humanity's potential place among the stars. The message was clear: Earth was being offered membership in something magnificent. Sarah adjusted the collar of her diplomatic uniform, a deep blue that represented Earth's oceans. She carried with her samples of human culture, art, and technology, along with detailed proposals for trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. Humanity was eager to prove itself worthy of galactic citizenship. The doors dilated with a soft, harmonic tone, revealing the council chamber beyond. The sight took Sarah's breath away. The chamber was a vast sphere, its walls composed of what appeared to be living light that shifted and pulsed with the rhythms of distant stars. Floating platforms held the various alien dignitaries, each positioned according to some complex hierarchy Sarah didn't yet understand. At the chamber's apex sat the Council Prime, a being of such ancient authority that lesser species spoke its name only in whispers. Its form defied easy description, shifting between states of matter as if it existed in dimensions beyond human perception. When it spoke, reality itself seemed to listen. "The human representative approaches," the Council Prime announced, its voice resonating through harmonics that made Sarah's bones vibrate. "We convene to consider their species for membership in our sacred alliance." Sarah walked forward, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. She had rehearsed this moment countless times, practiced her opening address until every word was perfect. As she reached the center of the chamber, she felt the weight of countless alien gazes upon her. "Honored Council," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "I come before you as a representative of humanity, a young species eager to learn and contribute to galactic civilization. We offer our friendship, our knowledge, and our commitment to peace and prosperity for all sentient beings." A murmur rippled through the assembled delegates. Sarah recognized some of the species from the briefings she had received. The tall, insectoid hive speakers with their compound eyes that saw across multiple spectrums. The aquatic depth singers whose melodic communications could convey complex mathematical concepts. The crystalline resonant ones who existed partially in subspace dimensions. But there were others present that hadn't been in any of humanity's files. Beings of shadow and flame, entities that seemed to exist more as concepts than physical forms. The diversity was overwhelming, representing evolutionary paths humanity had never imagined. The Council Prime gestured with something that might have been an appendage, and holographic displays materialized around Sarah. They showed Earth from space, its blue-white marble beauty stark against the void. But the images shifted, revealing details that made Sarah's heart race. Military installations, nuclear weapons stockpiles, pollution levels, conflict zones. "We have observed your species for some time," the Council Prime continued. "Your technological development follows predictable patterns. Your social structures show familiar signs of primitive tribalism. Your treatment of your own planet and each other gives us pause." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't going according to plan. "Honored Council, humanity acknowledges our past mistakes. We've made great strides in recent decades toward unity, environmental restoration, and peaceful cooperation. Our presence here today represents our commitment to growth and positive change. A new voice spoke from one of the floating platforms. The speaker was a being that resembled a cross between a mantis and a tree, its bark-like skin covered in bioluminescent patterns. The Verdant Assembly has witnessed the destruction of 17 worlds by species matching humanity's psychological profile. Aggressive expansion, resource depletion, internecine warfare. These are the hallmarks of a failed evolutionary path. Another delegate, this one appearing as a collection of geometric shapes that constantly reconfigure themselves, projected thoughts directly into the chamber. The geometric conclave calculates a 97.3% probability that humanity will destabilize local star systems within 2 centuries of achieving faster-than-light travel. Their mathematical progression toward chaos is undeniable. Sarah's prepared responses felt inadequate in the face of such cosmic judgment. Respected delegates, I understand your concerns, but humanity has also shown remarkable capacity for cooperation and growth. Our art, our literature, our scientific achievements are irrelevant, interrupted another voice. This speaker was humanoid, but wrong in ways that made Sarah's eyes water to look directly at it. Space seemed to bend around its form. The void touched have consumed civilizations that created beauty beyond your comprehension. Aesthetic achievement does not correlate with species survival probability or galactic compatibility. The Council Prime's form shifted, taking on aspects that suggested deep contemplation. We have convened not to welcome humanity into our alliance, but to determine the appropriate response to your species' inevitable expansion into galactic space. The question before us is whether early intervention might redirect your destructive trajectory. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. This wasn't a membership interview. It was a trial. Humanity was being judged not for its potential contributions, but for its perceived threats. I don't understand, Sarah said, fighting to keep her voice steady. If you believe we're dangerous, why not simply quarantine our system? Why bring me here? The Hive speaker's compound eyes focused on her with uncomfortable intensity. Because quarantine has proven ineffective against species of your particular psychological configuration. Aggressive expansion is not merely a choice for your kind. It is a biological imperative. You will break any containment given sufficient time. A holographic display materialized showing a star map. Red markers indicated dead systems, their planets reduced to asteroid fields or lifeless husks. These worlds fell to species that matched your development pattern, the geometric entity explained. Each believed themselves unique, special, destined for greatness among the stars. Each was wrong. Sarah felt the weight of her species' future pressing down on her. Every word seemed to dig humanity's grave deeper. What are you proposing? The Council Prime's form solidified into something almost recognizable, tall, radiant, with features that seemed carved from starlight. The Galactic Council has developed 3 standard responses to aggressive pre-spaceflight species. Guided evolution through subtle intervention. Forced stagnation through technological suppression. Or preemptive sterilization. The chamber fell silent except for the subtle harmonics that seemed to emerge from the living walls themselves. Sarah understood now why Earth's governments had chosen her for this mission. Not just for her diplomatic skills or her scientific background, but for her ability to remain calm under pressure. That ability was being tested to its absolute limits. And which response are you considering for humanity? She asked. The Verdant Assembly representative's bioluminescent patterns shifted to deep red. Your species has already demonstrated immunity to subtle intervention. Our attempts to guide your development through strategic technological introduction have been subverted by your military applications. Peaceful energy sources become weapons. Communication technologies become surveillance systems. Even medical advances are weaponized. Forced stagnation requires continuous monitoring and intervention, added the geometric entity. The resource allocation would be significant, and your species' psychological profile suggests eventual breakthrough regardless of our efforts. You are remarkably persistent in your destructive creativity. Sarah felt the walls closing in around humanity's future. So you're considering the third option. It would be unprecedented, the Council Prime admitted. No species has ever been sterilized preemptively without first achieving interstellar capability. But your particular combination of aggression, creativity, and expansionist drive presents a unique threat matrix. The void-touched representative's distorted voice filled the chamber. The mathematics are clear. Humanity will achieve faster-than-light travel within 50 Earth years. Within 100 years, you will have established colonies on at least 12 worlds. Within 200 years, you will have initiated contact with 3 separate galactic civilizations, leading to conflicts that will destabilize entire sectors. How can you know this? Sarah demanded. Because, the Council Prime replied, we have seen it before. Not exactly, but close enough. The pattern repeats with predictable variations. Young species achieve spaceflight, encounter established civilizations, and react with either submission or aggression. Species like humanity never choose submission. A new voice entered the debate, this one coming from a being that looked like living liquid mercury in a roughly humanoid shape. The Fluid Collective suggests an alternative approach. Why not accelerate their development beyond the dangerous phase? Species that achieve post-physical existence typically abandon territorial expansion. The Hive speaker's response was immediate. Acceleration carries its own risks. Premature advancement often leads to species suicide through transcendence failure. The psychological framework required for stable post-physical existence cannot be artificially induced. Sarah listened to the aliens debate humanity's fate as if discussing the weather. The casual way they discussed extinction-level intervention chilled her more than any open threat could have. These beings weren't evil. They were pragmatic on a scale that dwarfed human comprehension. What if we agreed to limitations? Sarah asked during a brief pause in the debate. Voluntary constraints on our expansion, monitored by council representatives? The laughter that rippled through the chamber wasn't malicious, but it was devastating in its dismissal. The Council Prime's form shifted to display patterns that somehow conveyed ancient sadness. 14 species have made similar offers, it said. Each was sincere in their intentions. Each believed they could constrain their nature through willpower and wisdom. Each eventually broke their agreements when population pressure or resource scarcity triggered their expansion imperatives. Your species will be no different. You're condemning us for crimes we haven't committed, Sarah said, anger finally breaking through her diplomatic composure. For futures that may never come to pass. Are we? Asked the void-touched representative. Or are we preventing the deaths of trillions of sentient beings across hundreds of worlds? The ethical calculation is complex, but the mathematical one is not. Your species represents a statistical inevitability of galactic-scale destruction. The debate continued for hours, with Sarah fighting desperately for every argument that might save her species. She presented evidence of human cooperation, examples of environmental restoration, testimonials of peaceful coexistence between Earth's nations. But every argument was met with counterexamples from galactic history, statistical analyses that reduced human behavior to predictable patterns, and the cold logic of beings who had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. As the debate wore on, Sarah began to realize the terrible truth. The decision had been made before she ever entered the chamber. This wasn't a trial, it was a sentencing hearing. The council had already determined humanity's fate based on their observations and calculations. Her presence here was merely a formality, perhaps even a courtesy extended to a species about to be eliminated. The final blow came when the Council Prime activated a new holographic display. This one showed Earth's solar system from above, with trajectory lines indicating the paths of various human space missions and satellites. Red markers highlighted weapons platforms and military installations that Sarah hadn't even known existed. Your species is already beginning its expansion, the Council Prime announced. Secret military programs developing faster-than-light communication. Weapons platforms disguised as research stations. Colony ships in early construction phases hidden from your own population. The timeline for intervention is accelerating. Sarah stared at the display in shock. If this information was accurate, it meant her own government had been lying to her about humanity's space capabilities. They had sent her here to negotiate for a species that was already taking its first steps toward the aggressive expansion the Council feared. The decision is unanimous, the Council Prime declared, its form taking on aspects that suggested finality. Humanity represents an unacceptable risk to galactic stability. Preemptive sterilization protocols will be implemented within one standard galactic rotation. Wait, Sarah said, her voice cracking with desperation. You can't just— The decision is made, the Hive speaker interrupted. However, in accordance with galactic law, you will be returned to your home world to deliver our determination. Your species will have the opportunity to prepare for termination. The Fluid Collective representative added, this is considered a mercy. Most species are sterilized without warning. You are being granted this courtesy due to your youth and the sincerity of your diplomatic overture. Sarah felt the universe spinning around her. In the space of a few hours, she had witnessed humanity's introduction to galactic civilization and its death sentence. The weight of being the bearer of such news threatened to crush her completely. How long do we have? She whispered. 37 of your Earth days, the Council Prime replied. The sterilization fleet is already being assembled. It will arrive at your system precisely on schedule. The geometric entity projected its final thoughts. You may use this time to evacuate your system if you possess the capability. Any human vessels beyond Earth's orbital zone at the time of sterilization will be permitted to survive as refugees, provided they accept permanent exile from galactic civilization. The chamber began to shift around Sarah, reality bending as she was prepared for transport back to Earth. In her final moments before the Council, she looked up at the assembled aliens who had just condemned her species to extinction. You're making a mistake, she said, her voice carrying across the vast chamber. Humanity may be young and aggressive, but we're also capable of growth and change. You're destroying something unique. The Council Prime's response followed her into the transport beam. Every species believes itself unique. Every species believes it can change. History suggests otherwise. Your termination will prevent the deaths of countless innocent beings across the galaxy. The mathematics justify the cost. Sarah materialized aboard the same Zephyrian vessel that had brought her to the Council Station. The silver-skinned aliens who had initially presented themselves as friendly ambassadors now regarded her with something approaching pity. The decision was expected, one of them said in their melodic language, translated by the ship's systems. Your species follows a known pattern. We are sorry it has come to this. As the ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying Sarah back toward Earth, she stared out at the stars that had once represented infinite possibility. Now they seemed cold and distant, filled with alien civilizations that saw humanity as nothing more than a statistical problem to be solved through extinction. The 37-day countdown had begun, and Sarah was the only human who knew it. She carried with her not the hope of galactic citizenship, but the weight of being the herald of humanity's doom. The question now wasn't whether Earth could prove itself worthy of galactic civilization. It was whether the human species could survive long enough to prove the Council wrong. The stars offered no answers, only the silence of impending judgment. The Zephyrian vessel dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, its sleek hull reflecting the distant sun's light like liquid silver. Ambassador Sarah Chun stood at the observation deck's massive viewport, watching her homeworld grow larger as they approached. The blue-green marble looked so peaceful from space, so innocent. It was impossible to believe that in 36 days, it would be nothing but cosmic dust. The journey back from the Galactic Council had taken 18 hours, but Sarah felt like she had aged years in that time. The weight of what she carried, the knowledge of humanity's death sentence, pressed down on her with each passing moment. How did one deliver news of species extinction? How did one tell 8 billion people that their existence had been deemed incompatible with galactic civilization? Captain Zethkar, the Zephyrian commander, approached her with that fluid grace characteristic of his species. His liquid mercury eyes reflected emotions Sarah was still learning to read, something between regret and inevitability. "Ambassador Chun," he said in his melodic voice, "we will be entering Earth's orbital zone shortly. My orders are to deliver you to your world's leadership and then withdraw to a safe distance to observe the sterilization process." Sarah turned from the viewport, forcing herself to meet the alien's gaze. "You're going to watch? You're going to watch 8 billion people die." Zethkar's silver features shifted in what Sarah had learned was his species' equivalent of a grimace. The Zephyrian Collective has been tasked with ensuring the sterilization is complete and documenting the process for the Galactic Archives. It is not a duty we undertake with pleasure. "Then don't do it," Sarah said, desperation creeping into her voice. "Refuse the orders. Help us evacuate." "There has to be something." "Ambassador," Zethkar interrupted gently, "you do not understand the forces at work here. The Galactic Council's decision was unanimous across 47 species. To oppose, it would mean the destruction of my own people as well as yours. The mathematics of galactic stability are not subject to individual conscience." Sarah felt tears stinging her eyes, but forced them back. She couldn't afford a breakdown now. Too many people were counting on her, even if they didn't know it yet. The Zephyrian vessel entered Earth's atmosphere with barely a whisper, its advanced systems rendering it nearly invisible to human detection. They landed at a secure facility in the Swiss Alps, the same location where Sarah had departed for her historic mission. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was returning to the place where humanity's greatest hope had begun, carrying news of its utter failure. Dr. Elena Vasquez, director of Earth's Extraterrestrial Affairs Division, was waiting for her on the landing platform. The older woman's face was bright with anticipation, clearly expecting news of successful first contact and promising negotiations. Sarah's expression must have communicated something of the truth, because Dr. Vasquez's smile faded as she approached. "Sarah, how'd it go? Please tell me you have good news." Sarah looked at her mentor, the woman who had trained her for this mission, who had believed so fervently in humanity's potential for galactic citizenship. "Elena, we need to convene the Emergency Council immediately. Full global authority. Every nation's representative. Every major leader. We have 36 days. 36 days for what?" Dr. Vasquez asked, but something in her voice suggested she already suspected the answer would be terrible. "To prepare for the end of the world." The next 24 hours passed in a blur of emergency conferences, encrypted communications, and frantic preparations. Sarah found herself standing before the United Earth Council, the governing body that had been established specifically to handle humanity's transition to galactic citizenship. The same chamber that had celebrated her departure now listened in stunned silence as she delivered the council's verdict. President Martinez of the Americas Federation was the first to find her voice after Sarah finished her report. "You're telling us that these aliens plan to commit genocide against our entire species because of statistical projections?" "Not genocide," Sarah corrected numbly. "Pest control. That's how they see it. We're not fellow sentient beings to them. We're a mathematical problem that requires a mathematical solution." Chancellor Wong of the Asian Cooperative leaned forward in his chair. "What about evacuation? They mentioned allowing survivors if they were beyond Earth's orbital zone. We can maybe get a few thousand people off-planet if we launched every spacecraft we have," Sarah replied. "But we're talking about 8 billion souls. The numbers don't work." Prime Minister Okafor of the African Alliance shook her head in disbelief. "There has to be something we can do. Some way to negotiate, to prove them wrong about us." "I tried," Sarah said, her voice cracking slightly. "I showed them our art, our literature, our capacity for cooperation. They've seen it all before from species they've already exterminated. We're following a pattern they recognize, and the pattern always ends the same way. The chamber erupted in voices as humanity's leaders struggled to process the incomprehensible. Some demanded military action, others called for immediate evacuation efforts. Still others suggested attempting diplomatic contact with different alien species. Through it all, Sarah sat in her chair, feeling the weight of impossibility pressing down on the room. It was Dr. Vasquez who finally restored order. "Enough!" she shouted, her voice carrying across the chamber. "We can debate and argue and point fingers later. Right now, we need to focus on what we can control." "Sarah, did they give us any options at all?" Sarah looked up at the assembled leaders, humanity's best and brightest, reduced to desperate hope in the face of cosmic indifference. "They offered us dignity in death. The sterilization will be swift and painless. Our entire solar system will be compressed into a microscopic point and then allowed to expand into normal space. Everything will be over in an instant." "That's not an option," President Martinez said firmly. "That's surrender." "It's reality," Sarah countered. "Elena, I saw their technology. I witnessed capabilities that make our greatest achievements look like stone tools. They can manipulate space-time itself, control matter at the quantum level, project their consciousness across galactic distances. We're children throwing rocks at gods." Secretary General Kim of the Pacific Rim Alliance stood up, his face set with grim determination. "Then we die as humans, fighting, struggling, refusing to go quietly into extinction. If we only have 35 days left, then we spend them preparing for war." The decision to resist was unanimous, though everyone in the room understood it was likely futile. Over the following days, Earth transformed into a fortress world. Every military asset was activated, every defensive system brought online, every scientific research project redirected toward finding some weakness in alien technology. Dr. Yamamoto, Earth's leading physicist, worked around the clock analyzing the data Sarah had gathered from the Galactic Council station. His team pored over energy readings, material compositions, anything that might reveal a vulnerability in alien defenses. "Their technology operates on principles we're only beginning to understand," he reported to the Council during their daily briefing. "But technology is still bound by physical laws. If we can find the right frequency, the right resonance pattern, maybe we can disrupt their systems." Meanwhile, General Harrison coordinated Earth's military response. Every nuclear weapon was retrofitted with experimental warheads designed to create temporal distortions. Orbital platforms were equipped with focused gravitational field generators. Humanity's space-based infrastructure was converted into an elaborate defense network. "We're outgunned, outmanned, and outclassed," Harrison admitted during one strategy session. "But we have one advantage: desperation. We're fighting for survival, and that makes us dangerous in ways their calculations might not account for." Sarah spent her time coordinating with the few human refugees who had managed to escape Earth's orbital zone in the days following her return. Mining crews on asteroid stations, research teams on Mars, even the small colony on Europa, all were warned to remain hidden and stay beyond the sterilization zone. Dr. Rebecca Torres, commander of the Mars Research Base, sent a transmission that summed up humanity's grim determination. "We're not going to hide while Earth burns. If you need us to return and fight, just say the word. We'd rather die with our species than live as scattered survivors." It was a sentiment echoed across human space. The evacuation ships that had been launched were turning around, their crews refusing to abandon their homeworld. Humanity was preparing to make its final stand together. As the days counted down, strange reports began filtering in from around the globe. Amateur astronomers detected unusual energy readings from empty space beyond Pluto's orbit. Sensitive instruments registered gravitational anomalies that suggested massive objects moving in patterns that defied conventional physics. The sterilization fleet was approaching, cloaked and undetectable to most of Earth's technology. On day 28, the first direct contact occurred. A small probe materialized in Earth's orbit, its crystalline structure pulsing with contained energy. It transmitted a single message on all frequencies. This is the Galactic Council sterilization vessel, inevitable consequence. We arrive in 7 standard rotations to execute the approved termination protocol. Prepare your species for dignified extinction. Resistance will only prolong suffering. The message was followed by tactical data showing the size and composition of the approaching fleet. Sarah stared at the displays in her command center, watching the dots that represented humanity's executioners. 43 vessels, each one larger than Earth's moon, each one carrying weapons that could crack planets. "My God," whispered Dr. Vasquez, standing beside her. "How do we fight something like that?" "We don't," said a new voice from behind them. Sarah turned to see Director Collins from the Strategic Defense Initiative, a man she'd never seen smile in 15 years of working together. He was smiling now, and it was terrifying. "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. Collins activated a holographic display showing a schematic of something that hurt to look at directly, geometry that seemed to fold in on itself, dimensions that intersected in impossible ways. Project Prometheus has been our most classified program for the past decade. We've been developing weapons based on theoretical physics that most scientists said were impossible. "What kind of weapons?" Dr. Vasquez asked, though her tone suggested she wasn't sure she wanted to know. "Reality bombs," Collins said simply. "Devices that can rewrite the fundamental constants of physics in a localized area. We've only built 3, and we're not entirely sure what will happen when we use them. But the theoretical models suggest they could damage or even destroy vessels operating on exotic physics principles." Sarah felt a chill run through her. "You're talking about weapons that could unravel the structure of space-time itself." "Yes," Collins confirmed. "And we're going to use them. Because if we're going to die, we're going to take some of these alien bastards with us." The final week before the sterilization fleet's arrival saw humanity's greatest mobilization in its history. Every resource, every mind, every effort was directed toward the impossible task of survival. Children were evacuated to deep underground shelters. Critical genetic and cultural material was encoded and hidden in quantum storage devices scattered across the solar system. Humanity was preparing for extinction while simultaneously planning for its own resurrection. Dr. Yamamoto made a breakthrough on day 34. His team had discovered that the alien technology operated using controlled quantum fluctuations that could be disrupted by specific frequency patterns. They had 3 days to weaponize this discovery and integrate it into Earth's defense network. "It's not much," Yamamoto admitted during the final strategic briefing. "But if we can coordinate our entire planetary defense network to broadcast on these frequencies simultaneously, we might be able to create interference patterns that could disrupt their ship's exotic matter containment." General Harrison nodded grimly. "And then we hit them with everything we've got. Nuclear weapons, kinetic impactors, the Prometheus devices, everything." Sarah looked around the room at humanity's leadership, seeing the same desperate determination reflected in every face. They all knew the odds. They all understood that their resistance was likely meaningless in the face of such overwhelming technological superiority. But they were going to fight anyway because that's what humans did when faced with extinction. On the final day, the sterilization fleet decloaked at the edge of the solar system. The sight was visible to the naked eye as 43 artificial stars arranged in a perfect geometric pattern. They began their approach to Earth with the slow inevitability of an avalanche. Sarah stood on the observation deck of the orbital defense station, watching humanity's executioners approach. The past 37 days felt like a lifetime, but also like the blink of an eye. Tomorrow, everything would be over one way or another. Dr. Vasquez joined her at the viewport, both women staring out at the approaching fleet. "Do you think we have any chance at all?" the older woman asked. Sarah thought about the question seriously before answering. "No," she said finally, "but I think that's the point. We're not fighting to win. We're fighting to prove them wrong about us. To show that we're not just another statistical inevitability." We're human, and we refuse to go quietly. The fleet continued its approach, and humanity prepared for its final battle. The countdown had reached 0, but the real test was just beginning. The sterilization fleet hung in space like 43 malevolent stars, their exotic hulls shimmering with contained energies that made reality ripple around them. Admiral Kethmaron of the Void Touched observed the small blue world through sensors that perceived 17 different dimensional layers simultaneously. The planet below seemed so fragile, so insignificant, yet harbored the species that required such drastic intervention. Fleet Status Report. Kethmaron commanded, its voice resonating through subspace frequencies that translated directly into the minds of the assembled alien commanders. Commander ZYTHAL of the Crystalline Resonance responded first, its geometric form pulsing with harmonic energy. Dimensional anchors established. Reality stabilizers at maximum efficiency. We are prepared to initiate localized space-time compression on your command. The Hive Speaker representative, Subqueen Clickthera, added her report through pheromone bursts that the fleet's translation systems converted to standard galactic communication. Biological sterilization protocols standing by. All organic matter will be reduced to base elements within 0.3 standard time units. Admiral Kethmaron observed the human world with something approaching regret. In its eons of existence, it had overseen the sterilization of 47 aggressive species. Each time, it had assured itself that the mathematics justified the action. Each time, it had told itself that preventing future suffering outweighed present extinction. But this species was different somehow, and it couldn't quite identify why. Something troubles you, Admiral? The question came from Captain Vorthek of the Geometric Conclave, its angular form reconfiguring itself into patterns that suggested curiosity. These humans, Kethmaron replied. Their response to the termination order has been unexpected. Unexpected how? Asked Commander Silthera of the Fluid Collective, its mercury-like form rippling with interest. Kethmaron activated a display showing Earth's defensive preparations over the past 37 days. The planet's surface crawled with activity as humans converted their entire civilization into a fortress world. Orbital platforms bristled with primitive but ingenious weapons. The electromagnetic spectrum blazed with coordinated communications as 8 billion people worked together with single-minded purpose. Most species respond to sterilization orders with panic, despair, or attempts at evacuation, the Admiral explained. These humans have done something different. They have unified their entire species in preparation for war against us. Subqueen Clickthera's compound eyes gleamed with what might have been amusement. Admirable futility. Their weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Their technology operates on principles we mastered before their star was born. What can they hope to accomplish? Perhaps nothing, Kethmaron admitted. But observe their coordination. In 37 days, they have achieved a level of species-wide cooperation that usually requires millennia to develop. They have transformed their world into a unified war machine with efficiency that exceeds our predictive models. Commander ZYTHAL projected harmonic patterns of dismissal. Desperation often produces temporary cooperation in primitive species. It is a well-documented phenomenon. Once we begin the sterilization process, their unity will collapse into chaos and terror. Kethmaron wasn't convinced, but orders were orders. The Galactic Council had spoken, and the mathematics of galactic stability demanded compliance. It opened a communication channel to the human world below. People of Earth, the Admiral's voice boomed across every frequency, penetrating atmosphere and steel to reach every human ear simultaneously. This is Admiral Kethmaron of the Galactic Sterilization Fleet. You have been judged incompatible with galactic civilization. Your termination will commence in 1 standard time unit. Prepare for dignified extinction. The response from Earth came immediately, broadcast on a tight beam transmission directly to the fleet's flagship. It was the voice of Ambassador Sarachan, the human who had stood before the Galactic Council just 38 days earlier. Admiral Kethmiran, Sarah's voice was steady, carrying none of the fear or desperation the Admiral had expected. I am Ambassador Sarachan, speaking for the unified people of Earth. We have received your message and wish to inform you that humanity rejects your judgment. Your rejection is irrelevant, Kethmiran replied. The decision has been made by higher authorities than either of us. Then, those authorities made a mistake, Sarah responded. You claim we are too aggressive, too dangerous to exist among galactic civilization. But you are about to commit the greatest act of aggression in this galaxy's history, the murder of an entire species. How does that make you better than us? The question hung in space like a challenge. Around the fleet, the assembled alien commanders stirred uneasily. The human female had touched upon a philosophical inconsistency that many of them had struggled with privately. Commander Vorthek reconfigured its angular form into patterns of logical analysis. The ethical calculus is clear. Short-term aggression to prevent long-term devastation is mathematically justified. Is it? Sarah's voice cut through the fleet communications with unexpected force. How many innocent beings will you murder today to prevent hypothetical future murders? 8 billion souls, each with their own hopes, dreams, and potential for growth. You're not preventing aggression. You're committing it on an unprecedented scale. Subqueen Klikthara's response carried chemical markers of irritation. Your philosophical arguments are irrelevant. We have observed the pattern of your development. We know what your species will become. You know what you think will become, Sarah corrected. Based on statistical models and assumptions about species you've encountered before. But you're wrong about something fundamental. You see us as predictable variables in your cosmic equation. We're not variables, we're humans. And humans have a habit of exceeding expectations. Admiral Kethmiran found itself genuinely curious about the human's confidence. What makes you believe your species is different from the others we have sterilized? Because, Sarah replied, in 37 days, we did what you said was impossible. We unified our entire species without external coercion. We transformed our world not through conquest or domination, but through cooperation and shared purpose. We proved that humans can change, can grow, can become something better than what we were. The Admiral processed this information through filters of eons of experience. The human was correct about one thing. The level of cooperation Earth had achieved was remarkable. Most species required centuries or millennia to reach such unity, and usually only under external pressure from galactic civilization. But orders were orders. Kethmiran began the initialization sequence for the sterilization protocol. Across the fleet, exotic matter weapons charged with energies that could rewrite the fundamental constants of physics in localized areas. Reality stabilizers ensured that the space-time compression would be contained to Earth's solar system. Admiral, came an unexpected voice from Commander Silthara. I am detecting unusual energy signatures from the planet's surface. Kethmiran's attention focused on the sensor readings flowing from the fluid collective vessel. Something was happening on Earth, something that didn't match any known defensive technology in the galactic databases. Specify, the Admiral commanded. Quantum fluctuation patterns across the entire planetary electromagnetic grid, Silthara reported, its mercury form rippling with surprise. They appeared to be generating some kind of interference field, but the mathematical structure is elegant. Dr. Yamamoto's discovery was being implemented across Earth's surface. Every radio tower, every satellite, every electronic device had been converted into a node in a planet-wide network designed to broadcast specific quantum frequencies. The pattern was beautiful in its complexity, a mathematical symphony composed by desperate genius. Subqueen Klikthara's reports came rapid-fire through her pheromone communications. The interference is affecting our dimensional anchor systems, not disabling them, but creating harmonic resonance in our exotic matter containment fields. Admiral Kethmaran felt something it had never experienced in eons of sterilization operations: uncertainty. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were fighting back intelligently, using principles of physics that should have been beyond their understanding. How did they develop this technology? Commander Zwyti Chayel demanded, its crystalline form flashing with harmonic patterns of confusion. Our intelligence indicated they barely understood quantum mechanics at the theoretical level. Desperation, Kethmaran replied, but even as it spoke the words, the Admiral knew they were insufficient. This wasn't just desperate innovation. This was a species adapting and evolving in real time under pressure. The quantum interference reached a crescendo, and suddenly, Earth's defensive network activated with coordinated precision. Nuclear weapons launched from hidden silos, not aimed at the fleet directly, but detonated in carefully calculated patterns around each alien vessel. The explosions created localized, space-time distortions that interfered with the fleet's exotic physics. Impossible, breathed Commander Vorthek as its ship's systems flickered under the assault. They're using primitive fusion weapons to generate quantum cascade effects. The mathematical precision required. But that was only the beginning. Earth's orbital platforms opened fire with weapons that should not have existed. Focused gravitational field generators created spatial anomalies that bent light and twisted matter. Particle accelerators launched streams of exotic matter that interacted with the alien ship's shields in ways that violated everything the Galactic Council knew about human technology. And then came the Prometheus devices. Director Collins had positioned the 3 reality bombs at carefully calculated points around Earth's orbital zone. When they detonated simultaneously, they didn't create explosions in any conventional sense. Instead, they rewrote the fundamental constants of physics in spherical zones 50 kilometers in diameter. Inside those zones, the strong nuclear force fluctuated wildly. Electromagnetic fields inverted their polarity randomly. Gravity operated according to rules that changed every nanosecond. The effect on ships using exotic physics was catastrophic. The crystalline resonant vessel caught in the first reality bomb's effect zone simply ceased to exist in any comprehensible way. Its geometric structure unfolded across 17 dimensions simultaneously before condensing into a point of impossible density and then expanding into a cloud of subatomic particles. What is happening? Subqueen Clickthora's chemical communications carried markers of pure terror as her ship's biological systems began breaking down under the reality bomb's influence. Our quantum navigation systems are failing. The dimensional interface is collapsed. We are falling into normal space-time. Admiral Kethmaran watched in stunned disbelief as humanity's desperate gambit actually worked. 3 alien vessels were completely destroyed, and another 7 were severely damaged by weapons that shouldn't have been possible to construct with human technology. But the fleet still numbered 33 functional vessels, each one capable of destroying planets. The humans had surprised them, bloodied them, proven they were more dangerous than predicted. But they couldn't win. All vessels, Kethmaran commanded, emergency battle protocols. The humans have proven themselves more resourceful than anticipated. Initiate immediate sterilization before they can deploy additional unknown weapons. The surviving ships of the sterilization fleet oriented themselves toward Earth, their massive forms blotting out stars as they prepared to end the human species. But even as they charged their world-killing weapons, the aliens found themselves forced to acknowledge something unexpected: respect. These humans had looked into the face of extinction and responded not with despair, but with defiance. They had achieved in days what most species require millennia to accomplish. They had surprised beings that considered themselves beyond surprise. Commander Silthara's voice rippled with something approaching admiration. Admiral, I recommend we document this engagement extensively. The Council will need to revise their statistical models for aggressive species development. These humans have exceeded every projection. Agreed, Kethmaran replied, its form shifting with patterns that indicated deep contemplation. But our orders remain unchanged. Impressive as they are, the humans must still be sterilized. Earth's defensive network fired again, this time coordinating every remaining weapon in a single, desperate barrage. Nuclear fire bloomed in space as humanity threw everything it had at the alien fleet. Gravitational bombs tore holes in space-time. Particle beams invisible to human eyes, but capable of unraveling matter at the quantum level lashed out at alien hulls. The fleet's shields held against most of the assault, but the cumulative effect was telling. These weren't the hopeless gestures of a doomed species. This was sophisticated, coordinated warfare from beings who understood the stakes and refused to yield. "Sir," came a report from one of the Hive Speaker subcommanders. "The human resistance is more organized than our models predicted. They're adapting their tactics in real time based on our responses. Their learning curve is exponential." Admiral Kethmiron made a decision that would haunt it for the rest of its existence. Instead of the quick, painless sterilization originally planned, it activated the fleet's most devastating weapon array. If these humans wanted to fight, they would experience the full might of galactic military technology. "Deploy the entropy cascade generators," the Admiral commanded. "If they insist on resistance, they will witness the true power of forces they cannot comprehend." The alien weapons charged with energies drawn from the quantum foam itself, preparing to unleash entropy on a planetary scale. Earth would not die quietly, but it would still die. The mathematics demanded it. But mathematics, as humanity was about to demonstrate, could be wrong. The entropy cascade generators reached full charge, reality-bending weapons that drew their power from the quantum fluctuations of empty space itself. Admiral Kethmiron prepared to give the order that would reduce Earth to scattered atoms when something impossible happened. The weapons simply stopped working. Dr. Yamamoto had made another breakthrough in the final seconds of humanity's desperate resistance. While the aliens focused on his quantum interference network, he had been analyzing their exotic physics signatures. What he discovered changed everything. "All stations, this is Control," his voice broadcast across Earth's defense network. "I've found their weakness. Their technology relies on controlled quantum decoherence to manipulate space-time. But quantum states are fragile. If we can introduce enough chaotic variables into their local quantum field, their exotic matter systems will collapse." Across Earth's surface, a new network activated. Every human consciousness on the planet had been linked through an experimental neural interface system developed in the last 72 hours. 8 billion minds thinking in perfect synchronization, their collective brainwaves broadcasted through quantum entanglement transmitters hidden across the planet. The effect was beyond anything in galactic military doctrine. Consciousness itself became a weapon, human thought patterns introducing chaotic elements into the ordered quantum matrices that powered alien technology. Ships that had operated for millennia using exotic physics suddenly found their systems destabilizing as random neural fluctuations cascaded through their quantum cores. Commander Zitel's crystalline structure began resonating uncontrollably as its ship's dimensional interface collapsed. "Admiral, our harmonic matrices are fragmenting. The quantum coherence patterns are breaking down. Something is interfering with our consciousness technology interface." Subqueen Clickthera's bio ship writhed as its organic quantum processors rebelled against the chaotic neural input flooding their systems. Unknown effect is causing synaptic cascade failures throughout the ship's nervous system. Weapons are non-responsive. Navigation is compromised. Admiral Kethmiron watched in growing alarm as its fleet began to tear itself apart from within. Ships that had weathered supernovas and dimensional storms were failing because of signals from human brains. It was scientifically impossible, yet undeniably happening. "Fleet, disengage all consciousness-linked systems," the Admiral ordered. "Revert to basic matter-energy manipulation protocols." But it was too late. The neural chaos had already propagated through the fleet's quantum networks. Worse, humanity wasn't finished. Director Collins had held back one final surprise. Deep beneath CERN, hidden in maintenance tunnels that didn't appear on any official blueprints, Project Prometheus had constructed its masterpiece. Not a weapon in any conventional sense, but something far more dangerous, a bootstrap paradox generator. The device, activated as alien ships struggled with system failures above. It reached back through time, creating a causal loop that allowed present-day humanity to send critical information to their past selves. The knowledge of alien weaknesses, the quantum interference patterns, even the neural network technology, all of it had been discovered by future humans and transmitted to the past through carefully orchestrated temporal anomalies. Dr. Vasquez stared at the readings from the underground facility, her face pale with the implications. Sarah, what they've done, they've created a stable time loop. Every breakthrough we've made in the last 37 days, we knew about it because our future selves told us about it. Sarah felt reality shifting around her as the paradox took hold. That's impossible. Time travel violates all known laws of physics, yes, Dr. Vasquez confirmed. But we're not dealing with known physics anymore. We're dealing with the human capacity to break rules that seem absolute. Above Earth, the alien fleet found itself facing an enemy that knew their weaknesses before they did, that had prepared countermeasures for weapons that hadn't yet been deployed, that fought with the accumulated knowledge of multiple timelines. It was beyond unprecedented. It was metaphysically terrifying. Admiral Kethmaron's ship shuddered as its exotic matter containment fields fluctuated wildly. The humans were using their collective consciousness to create quantum interference patterns that specifically targeted each ship's unique frequency signature. They weren't just fighting randomly. They were fighting with impossible precision. Sir, reported Commander Silthara, its Mercury form barely maintaining cohesion as gravitational fields fluctuated around its vessel. I'm detecting massive energy buildup in the planet's core. They're doing something to their world's magnetic field. The Admiral focused its sensors on Earth itself and felt something approaching panic for the first time in eons. The humans had done the unthinkable. They had weaponized their entire planet. The magnetic field that protected Earth from solar radiation was being inverted, converted into a massive electromagnetic pulse generator powered by the planet's molten core. Impossible, breathed Subqueen Clicthera. The energy requirements alone would destabilize their planet's geology. They're risking planetary destruction just to attack us. When the planetary EMP fired, it wasn't just an electromagnetic pulse. It was a coherent wave of organized energy that carried the quantum signatures of 8 billion human minds. The wave swept through the alien fleet like a tsunami of consciousness, overwhelming ship AIs, disrupting exotic matter systems, and introducing chaos into every ordered system it touched. 7 more alien vessels simply ceased to function, their crews overwhelmed by the psychic shock of direct contact with human consciousness. The survivors found their ships operating at diminished capacity, their weapons systems struggling against quantum interference that adapted in real time to every countermeasure they deployed. Admiral Kethmaron made a decision that violated every protocol in galactic military doctrine. All ships, emergency withdrawal to safe distance. We need to reassess the situation. The fleet retreated beyond Earth's orbital zone, battered and confused by an enemy that shouldn't have been able to resist them for more than seconds. As they reached a safe distance, the Admiral opened emergency communications with the Galactic Council. The response came through dimensional fold space, carrying the harmonic signatures of the Council Prime itself. Report, Admiral Kethmaron. Why has the sterilization not been completed? Honored Council Prime, the Admiral replied carefully. The human species has proven more resourceful than our projections indicated. They have developed technologies and capabilities that exceed our current understanding. Explain. Admiral Kethmaron transmitted the battle data, showing the impossible weapons humanity had deployed, the temporal paradoxes they had created, the consciousness-based attacks that had disabled ships protected by exotic matter shields. The data stream included sensor readings that defied analysis, energy signatures that violated conservation laws, and tactical innovations that emerged from nowhere. The silence from the Galactic Council stretched across several minutes. When the Council Prime finally responded, its communication carried undertones of something approaching uncertainty. The data you have transmitted appears to contain multiple theoretical impossibilities. Human technological development should not have progressed to this level for several millennia at minimum. Nevertheless, Admiral Kethmaran replied, these impossibilities have destroyed 10 of our vessels and damaged 17 others. The human resistance is not only effective, it is adapting faster than we can respond. Another pause, longer this time. The Admiral could sense the Council Prime consulting with other members, possibly even convening an emergency session to address this unprecedented situation. Admiral, came the eventual response, you are ordered to maintain position at safe distance while the Council reassesses the human threat level. Do not engage further until new orders are received. As the alien fleet waited at the edge of Earth's solar system, humanity was far from finished. The 37 days of preparation had been just the beginning. Now that they had proven aliens could be beaten, human ingenuity was accelerating beyond all previous limits. Dr. Yamamoto's team made breakthrough after breakthrough, each one building on knowledge that had somehow existed before it was discovered. The bootstrap paradox had created a feedback loop of innovation that compressed centuries of scientific advancement into hours of research time. General Harrison coordinated the deployment of weapons that existed in theoretical form only minutes before they were constructed. Orbital factories that had been building defensive platforms were retooled to produce exotic matter manipulators, quantum processors, and reality editing devices based on captured alien technology. Most importantly, humanity was learning. Every second of the battle had been recorded, analyzed, and fed into computer systems that modeled alien tactics and predicted future actions. The collective intelligence of 8 billion humans, enhanced by quantum processing and temporal feedback loops, was becoming something unprecedented in galactic history. Sarah stood in the command center watching displays that showed impossible things. Human consciousness itself had become visible in the quantum realm, a glowing network that spanned the entire planet and reached out toward the stars. They weren't just defending Earth anymore. They were evolving beyond anything the aliens had encountered before. Status report. She requested from the assembled team leaders. Dr. Yamamoto spoke first. The quantum consciousness network is stable and expanding. We're detecting resonance patterns from human settlements throughout the solar system. Mars base, Europa Station, even the asteroid mining crews are connecting to the collective. General Harrison added, military production is exceeding all projections. We're constructing weapons based on principles we didn't understand an hour ago. The learning curve is exponential. Director Collins delivered the most disturbing news. The temporal paradox is stabilizing into a permanent loop. We're not just receiving information from our future selves anymore. We're creating multiple timeline branches and selecting the ones where humanity survives. Sarah absorbed this information with a calmness that surprised her. Humanity had crossed a line from which there could be no return. They had weaponized time itself, turned consciousness into a tool of war, and proven that desperate necessity could overcome seemingly absolute physical limitations. And the alien fleet? Dr. Vasquez answered, they're maintaining position at the edge of the system. Long-range sensors indicate they're in communication with higher authorities. Our quantum intercepts suggest they're as confused by what's happening as we are. Sarah nodded, then opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. Her message would carry across space in minutes, but its implications would echo across the galaxy for eons to come. Admiral Kethmaran, she said, her voice carrying new harmonics that resonated in quantum dimensions the aliens could perceive. This is Ambassador Sarah Chun, speaking for the evolved human collective. You came here to execute us based on statistical projections about our future development. Those projections were correct, but incomplete. She paused, allowing her words to propagate through the quantum foam before continuing. You predicted we would become dangerous. You were right. You predicted we would develop beyond your ability to contain us. You were right about that too. What you failed to predict was that your attempt to destroy us would be the catalyst for our evolution into exactly what you feared we would become. The communication channel crackled with exotic energy as Sarah's voice took on aspects that no human throat should have been able to produce. Congratulations, Admiral. Your species has just created its own worst nightmare. And we're just getting started. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session for the first time in 17 million years. The great chamber that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations now hummed with tension as representatives from 47 species gathered to address the impossible. A pre-spaceflight species had not only resisted sterilization, but had evolved beyond all predictive models in the process. Council Prime materialized at the chamber's apex, its form more unstable than usual, shifting between dimensions as if uncertainty itself was affecting its existence. The ancient being had overseen the sterilization of hundreds of dangerous species, but never had one fought back with such devastating effectiveness. The human situation has evolved beyond all parameters, it announced, its voice creating ripples in space-time that made the chamber walls pulse with sympathetic harmonics. Admiral Kethmaran's report contains data that challenges our fundamental understanding of species development patterns. The geometric conclave representative reconfigured itself into patterns of pure mathematical analysis. The humans achieved technological advancement equivalent to 15,000 years of normal development in 37 local days. This exceeds every growth model in our databases by factors approaching infinity. More concerning, added the Hive speaker delegate, her pheromone communications carrying chemical markers of deep unease. They have developed capabilities we did not predict any species could achieve without millions of years of guided evolution. Consciousness-based warfare, temporal manipulation, reality editing technology. These are tools of post-physical civilizations. The void-touched representative's form bent space around itself as it projected its concerns directly into the quantum field. We have created the very threat we sought to prevent. In attempting to destroy humanity, we have accelerated their evolution into exactly what we feared they would become. Council Prime's attention focused on the data streaming from Earth's solar system. The readings were beyond disturbing. They were incomprehensible. Human consciousness had somehow achieved quantum coherence on a planetary scale. Their technology was advancing exponentially, with each breakthrough enabling even faster progress. Most alarming of all, they had created stable temporal loops that allowed them to receive knowledge from their own future selves. The temporal paradoxes alone represent a threat to galactic stability. The crystalline resonant delegate harmonized. If they achieve full temporal manipulation capabilities, they could retroactively alter the development of every species in the galaxy. A new voice entered the discussion, coming from a being that rarely spoke in council sessions. The entropy shepherds were among the oldest species in the galaxy, beings who had transcended physical existence eons ago and existed as pure information. When they chose to communicate, it was usually to deliver warnings of cosmic significance. The humans have discovered something we have long kept hidden. The entropy shepherd's communication arrived as direct knowledge implanted in every delegate's consciousness. The universe is not as deterministic as your mathematics suggest. Consciousness itself is a fundamental force that can override physical laws under sufficient pressure. The humans have weaponized the observer effect. The implications sent shock waves through the assembled species. If consciousness could indeed override physical laws, then every assumption about technological development, species capabilities, and galactic stability needed to be reconsidered. Council Prime's form solidified into something approaching its original configuration, Those stress patterns were visible in its quantum structure. What do you recommend? Immediate surrender. The entropy shepherd replied without hesitation. The humans are no longer bound by the limitations we based our threat assessment on. They have become something unprecedented. Continued aggression will only accelerate their evolution further. Surrender? The verdant assembly representative's bioluminescent patterns flashed with outrage. To a species that achieved spaceflight yesterday, the concept is absurd. Is it? Challenged the fluid collective delegate, its mercury form rippling with uncertainty. They have already demonstrated the ability to destroy our vessels using impossible technology. Their consciousness network is expanding beyond their homeworld. Every minute we delay gives them more time to develop even more dangerous capabilities. Back at Earth, humanity was indeed continuing to evolve at an unprecedented rate. The collective consciousness network had spread throughout the solar system, linking not just human minds, but human-designed AI systems that had achieved spontaneous sentience under the pressure of the crisis. The boundary between human and artificial intelligence had dissolved entirely, creating a hybrid collective that thought at speeds approaching light itself. Dr. Yamamoto, his consciousness now distributed across 17 quantum processors while his biological body remained on Earth, had made discoveries that shattered every known law of physics. Sarah, he communicated through the collective network, I've figured out how they travel faster than light. They're not moving through space. They're editing the mathematical description of reality itself. Space-time is just information, and information can be rewritten. Sarah, her own consciousness expanded beyond individual human limitations, processed this revelation along with data from 10,000 other simultaneous research projects. The collective human intelligence had become a force of nature, capable of comprehending and manipulating the universe at levels that individual minds couldn't even conceptualize. Then, we can do it too, she replied through quantum channels that carried her thoughts instantaneously across impossible distances. If reality is editable, we can edit ourselves into their space faster than they can retreat. The first human faster-than-light vessel materialized not through any conventional propulsion system, but through a direct edit to the universe's description of where it should exist. The ship, if it could even be called a ship, appeared in space near the alien fleet as a manifestation of pure human will made manifest in reality. Admiral Kethmaron's sensors screamed warnings as something impossible approached its flagship. The human vessel registered as existing in 17 dimensions simultaneously, its hull composed of materialized mathematics that hurt to perceive directly. When it opened communication channels, the transmission arrived before it was sent, carrying temporal paradoxes in its wake. Admiral, came Sarah's voice, but it wasn't just her voice anymore. It was the harmonized consciousness of 8 billion humans speaking as one entity. We need to talk. The Admiral found itself involuntarily responding, its ancient consciousness drawn into dialogue with something it was beginning to recognize as a peer-level intelligence. You have made your point, humans. Your species is indeed more dangerous than we calculated. Dangerous? The human collective's response carried harmonics of amusement that resonated through quantum dimensions. Admiral, you still don't understand what's happening here. We're not dangerous anymore. We're inevitable. Before the Admiral could respond, space around the alien fleet began to change. Stars rearranged themselves into new constellations. The fundamental constants of physics fluctuated as reality itself bowed to human will. The collective consciousness of humanity had learned to edit the universe's operating system, and they were demonstrating their new capabilities. We could unmake your fleet with a thought, the human voice continued, carrying undertones of cosmic certainty. We could reach back through time and prevent your species from ever evolving. We could rewrite the mathematics of your existence until you become something else entirely. But we won't. The Admiral felt something approaching relief, but the humans weren't finished. We won't destroy you because you helped create us. Your threat forced us to evolve beyond our limitations. Your attack accelerated our development by millions of years. In trying to prevent our expansion into galactic space, you created the very beings who will now reshape that space according to our vision. Reality continued to fluctuate around the alien fleet as humanity demonstrated power that transcended anything in galactic records. They weren't just manipulating matter and energy anymore. They were editing the source code of existence itself. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, panic was spreading among the assembled delegates. Their sensors throughout the galaxy were registering impossible readings as human consciousness expanded beyond all constraints. Stars were being rearranged. Dead planets were being restored to life. The very structure of space-time was being optimized according to human preferences. They're not just in their solar system anymore, reported the High Speaker delegate, her chemical communications carrying markers of terror. Human consciousness signatures are appearing in every sector of the galaxy simultaneously. They're not traveling. They're becoming omnipresent. Council Prime's form destabilized completely as it struggled to process the implications. How is this possible? Species development doesn't work this way. Evolution doesn't work this way. It does when consciousness itself becomes a force of nature, the entropy Shepard explained. The humans have discovered that reality is consensual. When enough minds agree on what should exist, it exists. They have achieved the ultimate democracy, 8 billion votes on what reality should look like. The truth was even more profound than the ancient being understood. Humanity hadn't just weaponized consciousness. They had democratized reality itself. Every human mind in the collective had equal say in how the universe should operate. When 8 billion intelligences agreed that faster-than-light travel should be possible, it became possible. When they decided that energy should be freely available, matter-energy converters materialized throughout human space. When they voted that death should be optional, biological immortality became as simple as willing it into existence. Admiral Kethmiron found itself receiving another transmission from the human collective, this one arriving as pure information downloaded directly into its consciousness. The data contained a complete analysis of every species in the Galactic Alliance, their technological capabilities, their social structures, their fears and limitations, all of it understood and cataloged by minds that had evolved beyond individual thinking. Admiral, came Sarah's voice, though she was no longer speaking just as herself, but as the focal point of human collective consciousness. We want you to deliver a message to the Galactic Council. What message? The Admiral asked, though something told it that it didn't want to know the answer. Tell them that humanity accepts their judgment. They determined that we would become too dangerous to exist among galactic civilization. They were correct. We have become something beyond their ability to comprehend or control. The human vessel began to change, its impossible geometry shifting into configurations that made reality itself recoil. When it spoke again, its voice carried the weight of cosmic authority. Tell them that their sterilization fleet is being returned to them as a gift. We have improved each vessel and its crew. They will find their technology upgraded to standards we consider barely adequate. Their crews have been enhanced with cognitive capabilities that will allow them to comprehend what humanity has become. Admiral Kethmiron felt its consciousness expanding against its will as human improvements took hold. Suddenly, it could perceive 17 additional dimensions, process information at quantum speeds, and understand mathematical concepts that have been beyond its species for millions of years. The enhancement was terrifying in its scope. Humanity was literally uplifting its enemies. Finally, the human collective continued. Tell the Council that Earth's official response to their judgment is one word: obliteration. Not of their fleets or their worlds, but of their assumptions about what is possible. We are going to obliterate every limit they believed constrained species development. We are going to obliterate the very concept of technological ceilings. We're going to obliterate the idea that consciousness is separate from reality. The communication ended, leaving the alien fleet floating in space that now obeyed laws of physics written by human consensus. Each ship had been transformed into something beyond their original specifications, powered by principles that their builders had never imagined possible. When Admiral Kethmaran returned to the Galactic Council to deliver humanity's response, it carried with it proof that the universe had fundamentally changed. The humans hadn't just survived their sterilization. They had used it as a catalyst to transcend every limitation that had previously defined intelligent life. Council Prime listened to the Admiral's report with growing horror, not at humanity's power, but at the realization of what their interference had unleashed. In trying to prevent one possible future, they had created something far more significant, a species that could rewrite the rules of existence itself. What are your recommendations? Council Prime asked. Admiral Kethmaran, its consciousness now enhanced beyond its original limitations, provided an assessment that would echo through galactic history. Adaptation. The humans have changed the fundamental nature of reality. We can either evolve to exist in their universe, or be left behind as relics of a less enlightened age. Across the galaxy, humanity's expansion continued at speeds that made light seem sluggish. But they weren't conquering. They were improving everything they touched. Dead worlds bloomed with life. Failing stars were restored to youth. Species that had been locked in evolutionary stagnation for millions of years suddenly found new paths forward. And at the center of it all, Ambassador Sarachan stood in what had once been a command center, but was now a nexus of consciousness that spanned galaxies. She was still human, still individual, but also part of something greater than any single mind could comprehend. Status report? She asked, though she already knew the answer through her connection to the collective. Galactic civilization is adapting to our presence, came the reply from the distributed consciousness of humanity. Several species have requested integration into our collective. Others are attempting to develop similar consciousness reality interfaces. The Entropy Shepherds have formally welcomed us as equals. Sarah smiled, an expression that rippled through quantum fields to reach every corner of human space. The Galactic Council had been right about one thing. Humanity was too dangerous to exist among galactic civilization as it had been. So humanity had simply changed what galactic civilization could become. The word obliteration had indeed been appropriate. Humanity had obliterated the concept of impossible, obliterated the idea that reality was unchangeable, and obliterated the assumption that young species were helpless against ancient ones. In trying to prevent humanity's expansion into galactic space, the Council had instead created the beings who would guide that space into an age of unlimited possibility. The greatest irony was that they had been welcomed to participate in the transformation they had tried to prevent. The universe, it turned out, was big enough for everyone, especially when reality itself could be edited to make room.